Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show, our Saturday debate show. Streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch on Mac Sports and the Northeast Streaming Sports Facebook pages. Please like, follow, and share our Facebook pages. Subscribe to the Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel. We're also on Instagram and Twitter. Our website, nessp.info, for information on all our shows, our guests, sports stories, stores, and links to those stores. I'm Mac with your co-host, Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing writer and former president of the Boxing Writers Association of America. Together bringing you national news with special focus on Northeast professional sports from New York, Boston, and Philly. Today, folks, is our debate show. And our special guest host, as every Saturday, almost, once in a while he misses it, is Dr. Paul Semendinger coming live from the beach. And I'm very jealous of that right now. So
don't be. It's going to pour rain all day.
Is it really? Well,
that's what they're saying.
Okay, so folks, we got a great show for you today. Good morning, David. Glad you could make it on. We have a special guest also coming in about 8:30. Brett Keller is scheduled to come in from Binging Baseball. It's spelled binging because the word binging was already taken and he couldn't use it. And he knows everything about baseball, from the minor leagues to the independent leagues to spring base. I mean, he knows everything about baseball, and we love having him come on the air. We'll have our debate probably in the second hour, right around there, folks, because we're going to cover a little bit about the Yankees and some articles I read, and, of course, what they're doing out there right now, currently setting the league on fire, which is pretty exciting for all three of us, because we're all deep down Yankee fans. And we have criticized, I should say me and Doc have criticized the Yankees earlier. Jack stuck to his gun, saying the Yanks would make a run, and he's 100% right. They finally did. Two big trades for two lefties. Really has changed the whole batting situation in the offense and the defense for the Yankees, guys. I mean, we're talking great defenders, too, in Gallo and Riz. But I think it's given Boone more flexibility in his lineup, being able to go lefty, righty, choices at DH. He's playing Stanton, as we criticized him about earlier, too, in the outfield. So, I mean, it's opened up a whole new door for the Yankees offensively. Defensively, they've gotten stronger, and their pitching has gotten a lot better. So those three things are what you need, of course, to make the run. And Yankees, 12 in a row, guys. I mean, that hasn't been done in like forever for the Yankees.
It's now 13. They won last night.
Last night, yeah. So guys, I watched, before we get to the current Yankees, I was reading the article about the best switch hitters in Yankee history. And this article brought, Dave's with you too, 13 straight in a row. You're right, David. And it was interesting because the Yankees have had a lot of switch hitters in their history. So this is sort of this is the lineup they gave. And I want to see what you guys think about it. They had left field, they had Tim Raines, and he was taking over Roy White, which I don't know about that one. But shortstop, they had Mark Koenig. Center field, of course, Mickey Mantle. Mark Teixeira at first. Bernie Williams DHing. And right field, they had Nick Swisher. Second base, Horace Clarke. And at third base, Chase Heddy. Some pretty good names there, guys. We're talking back to Murderers Row even. What do you think about?
I noticed the two of you shake your head when Tim Raines was picked over Roy White. And Roy White was a career Yankee, wonderful Yankee, nothing but the warmest feelings. But putting my emotions aside, Tim Raines was a better player than Roy White. It wasn't neck and neck. He was really a better player than Roy White.
Yeah, well, if you want to say that Tim Raines is a better career player than Roy White, you're 100% correct. Tim Raines is in the Hall of Fame. Roy White will never, I couldn't imagine, be in the Hall of Fame. But if we're talking about the greatest Yankees of all time and the greatest Yankees switch-hitting team, Tim Raines was, I think, a Yankee for 2 or 3 seasons at the very end of his career. and he primarily played off the bench. Roy White was a Yankee for 14, 15 years, and he's among the Yankee all-time leaders in a million different categories. And so if I was picking an all-time Yankee team, I would pick Roy White. If you're picking the best players to ever appear in a Yankee uniform who happen to be switch hitters, I would pick Tim Raines.
That's a valid point. Roy White was a great Yankee. Like, you could make it the way I was looking at it. Let's say Ricky Henderson, for example. If I said he was the greatest center fielder in Yankee history, you could argue him in the mix in a certain sense. But obviously, Mantle was a great Yankee. So I see your point. Well taken.
What do you guys think? Of course, Jorge Posada left that out as catcher. What would you guys think if you were a manager? I would definitely put Bernie Williams somewhere in that outfield. I wouldn't have him as a DH. I mean, I know Bernie Williams was a center fielder, but if I got Mickey Mantle in center field, why wouldn't I pick, Bernie Williams over Nick Swisher, or even over Tim Raines or Roy White? Wouldn't that be something that you guys would do?
Roy White, as wonderful as he was, he had a tiny Achilles heel. He didn't have the greatest arm, over there. But I understand. You have a player like Bernie Williams. When he was young, he was an excellent defensive outfielder. But when the years went along, it kind of faded a little, and he was kind of quite average. I don't know your take on that, Doc.
I agree 100%. And you know what happens? We talk a lot about recency bias and things like that. So I think when it comes to Bernie, we remember Bernie's final years rather than his earlier years where he really was a great defender. And absolutely, I think Bernie Williams was a better defender. It's not even a question than Nick Swisher. So I definitely put him in the outfield. But again, he was a better defender during their Yankee years than Tim Raines. It's not even a question. So I would have White on my team. He'd play left. I might put Bernie in center. This would be controversial, and put Mantle in right, because Mantle, of course, had a better arm, and usually have the guy with the better arm in right field. And Mantle did play right field his first year when DiMaggio played center. So,
well, guys, how do you feel about this? The Mick played first base at the end of his career. Could you play around with that lineup? Even a young Mickey Mantle, put him at first base, Bernie Williams at center field.
Yeah, and then what do you do with Teixeira? Make him the DH? I think he's a better DH, a better fielder.
Forget what I just said. You win that argument.
Defensively, yes. Yeah. But just think now, if that was true, maybe Mickey Mantle would never have gotten hurt. Right? Because he got injured out in the outfield. What was it, a sprinkler thing or something he tripped over?
Yeah, and he was playing right field.
So could you imagine if they had Mickey Mantle at first base, that maybe he would have never got hurt, and who knows what his career would have been?
If Mantle were playing today, they would have treated him exactly the way they did John Carlos Stanton. They would have been scared he'd be hurt, he'd be DHing the whole time, and eventually they'd have to give him some time in the outfield.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, it's just interesting how you can play with the lineups. And to me, the lineup, I mean, what they picked as far as the Yankee first team, even taking Raines because of his career, I would win with Roy White myself because, I'm a huge Roy White fan. That's my hero on the Yankees. But I would have took White over him because just Roy White was he was Mr. Steady in the Yankees lineup, bad and good. It didn't matter. And I don't remember him getting injured at all. I never remember Roy White being injured. So just something that was it was pretty intriguing to me. There's so many great switch hitters that the Yankees have had, and they don't have any more of those, do they? Except for their center fielder that's always hurt. Do they have any more switch hitters in there? I don't recall.
Well, Aaron Hicks, like you said,
right.
Aaron Hicks presents a little bit of a problem to the Yankees going forward. He has 5 years left on his contract after this. He had $10 million a year. I mean, that's still a lot of money. But if you play Aaron Hicks full time, something's got to give next year, with the lineup. So, but, with the Yankees, it's predictable. Some players are going to get injured. Things are going to open up. Well, probably the one guy who never gets hurt is Brett Gardner. It's kind of like amazing. He's always there.
Yeah, I don't think Gardner will be on the team. The other guy I was just trying to remember his name. He's down in the minor leagues. Is Greg Allen. He's a switch hitter. You know, he came up for a little while. One of the spark plugs to help turn this thing around.
Yeah, yeah. So let's take a look at the East real quick, and the playoff picture is still up in the air, I think, guys. Because listen, the Yankees have been playing outstanding ball, 13 in a row. But the Rays aren't letting up. I mean, the Rays are like a machine over there. There's no big names over there. They just keep winning. You got the Rays at 80-48, the Yankees at 76-52, and the Sox at 74-56. And of course, you got the other division leaders. But it looks like the Rays are going to be in first, and the Yankees and the Red Sox, as we were talking before the show, are going to end up playing for that wild card spot unless the Yankees catch the Rays. So, I mean, that's really interesting how, we talked at the beginning of the year how it's no more rivalry and the Red Sox are not that good and blah. Well, here they come with their ace, Sales. And we were saying before the show, could you imagine one game, the Yankees versus the Red Sox with Cole versus Sales? The Yankees got offense, and folks, do not sleep on the Red Sox offense. They got an offense. So,
Mac, do not assume the Red Sox are getting into the playoffs. There are some teams behind them. I know Oakland is faltering badly, but Seattle is hanging in. I mean, if the Red Sox get in, you throw Chris Sale at anyone. It's a dangerous proposition. But the Yankees look like a virtual lock to make the playoffs right now, unless they have a total collapse. But the Red Sox, they got their work cut out for them. Even though if the season ended, they'd be in the playoffs. One of the teams that's within range behind them could catch fire, could overtake the Red Sox. And so they got their work cut out for them.
Well, you might be right, Jack. But the prospect is there. If it ended today, that's what it would be. And I'm interested to even, Doc, what's your opinion? I mean, Cole versus Sales, Yankees power versus Red Sox offense, defense versus defense. I think the Red Sox got an edge in defense, if you want to know the truth. What do you think, Doc?
When you play any sport and you play any single game, anything can happen, right? Your pitcher might not have it. He might not feel well. The other team, a bloop, an error, a bad call by an umpire. I mean, anything can happen. But I think that shapes up as a fantastic game for a baseball fan and for Major League Baseball to watch the Yankees and the Red Sox play against each other in a one-game winner-take-all playoff like 1978. That being said, as a Yankee fan, I don't want any part of that. And you have to hope that the Yankees can somehow catch the Rays and take the division. They do end the season with 3 games against the Rays. But this goes back to a bigger discussion. There's always the thought like you just want to finish strong, and the Yankees held it together until July, and then they got hot, and look how great they are. But all those losses earlier in the year are what has the Yankees 4 games behind the Rays and maybe unable to catch them, because now in the last month or so, you have to play better, 4 games better, really 5 games better than the Rays in order to take first place and avoid that wild card game. So, those games in April and May and in June, they count just as much as the games in September. And the Yankees dug themselves a deep hole, which might force them to have to face Chris Sale. And then if you face him and then you lose, like that becomes a great winter discussion. Was it a successful season or not? Right?
Yeah, but Doc's point about the one and done, how scary a scenario that is. And you have to the one game playoff, you want to avoid it at all costs. Look at last night, the LA Dodgers. They're trying to catch the Giants. As good as the Dodgers are, if they're in a one game playoff, they can get eliminated. And look what happens last night. The Dodgers at home against the Colorado Rockies in a game they absolutely have to win, and they lose that game. The Colorado. What happens if that's a playoff game? I mean, for one game, the Baltimore Orioles could beat anyone. I mean, it's very dangerous. It's scary. If you win your division, you have some leeway. You have breathing room. If you lose a game, okay, you could bounce back. But the urgency of the one-game playoff, I mean, the Yankees have had some luck with the one-game playoffs before, but it's usually against the Minnesota Twins who aren't going to be in the playoffs.
That's true.
78. Didn't the Yankees lose the last game of the season? I think Catfish Hunter pitched. I don't have it in front of me.
Right. The Yankees had a 1-game lead with like 6 games to play, and they won 5 of the last 6, but they lost the last game. The Red Sox came on. They won, and they forced the playoffs at Fenway Park. That was an amazing season because the Red Sox had like a 14.5-game lead in the sum over the Yankees. And the perception is that the Red Sox choked. But the Red Sox won their last 8 games of the year to force a playoff. And then they had that classic 1-gamer. But, it's a little – I think the scenario is a little different now because the Yankees only had to win 1 round after that tie with the Red Sox. They had to beat Kansas City in the next round to go to the World Series. Now you got to win 2 rounds after that. And it makes you think of all those great Yankee teams, let's say starting from 1949 when they won 5 in a row, the 14 out of 16. If we had that playoff scenario then that we had now, that would have changed baseball history as far as how often the Yankees would have went to the World Series. Maybe the Yankees don't make it a certain years, and maybe the Brooklyn Dodgers win more than 1 World Series. It's food for thought.
Maybe the Yankees make it in 54 too. When weren't they in second place when they?
Oh, right. They won 103 games. They won more games the year they didn't go to the World Series than during that run when they won the World Series all the years. Amazing. And they lost by 8 games. Cleveland won 111 games, and the Yankees won 103 games. And then in 54, the Giants then swept the Indians in the World Series, and that was Willie Mays' only World Series win in his whole career.
Well, even with the addition of the wild card itself, I mean, the Yankees won the division, one or at least once, I think twice, and Red Sox were the wild card, if I'm not mistaken, and they beat the Yankees and ended up getting into the playoffs. So, I mean, even just adding the wild card itself kept the Yankees from going to a couple World Series.
Well,
so,
and then of course we could go and look at it the other way. I don't have the standings and all the numbers in front of me for this either, but there were years in the 1980s, which is seen as a terrible decade by the Yankees, but I think the Yankees won more games in the 80s than any other team in baseball, where the Yankees were just on the cusp. And if there had been a wild card or an expanded playoff, the Yankees would have been able to probably get into the playoffs in some of those years. And then again, you never know what would have happened. Maybe the Yankees won the World Series in 1986 and not the Mets.
That's really amazing what you're saying, Doc, and that's great stuff. Because the perception is during the 80s, the Yankees fell flat. They were just so-so. They were maybe no better than a little better than average team. But they actually had the best record of all the teams in the 80s. And they went to the World Series, of course, only 1 year, 81, losing. But the years after 81, the perception is that the Yankees were really flattening out. And I guess that wasn't the case.
Yeah, I'll bring it up real fast. It'll take me a second. But I'll bring it up. So keep going on to the next topic, and I'll bring up.
So guys, again, they're playing last night. They played Judge in center field, and in right, Gallo in left, Gio's back at third, Velasquez is at shortstop, Rizzo at first, DJ at second, Voit DH'd. Gardner was on the bench. Nico Shiwaka caught. Sanchez was on the bench. Odor was on the bench, and some of the younger guys that have been playing well for the Yankees are on the bench. So you set the lineup for the playoffs. What are you thinking? We go to the playoffs. Of course, Gleyber Torres was on the bench too. So we go to the playoff. Right. So we got Gallo in left field. Do you start Stanton in right field? Do you put Judge in center? I mean, how do you start out that outfield? We know we got a great left fielder now. But do you keep Stanton in right field, keep that DH open, and play Judge in center?
Yeah, you go first, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is with Luke Voit. You got to get him in there. I mean, I know how good Rizzo is defensively, and I'm not saying Voit should start over Rizzo. I'm always a big believer you have to bet a glove in there. But Voigt's improved defensively. I don't think Voit is a liability anymore. Okay? But he doesn't have the glove Rizzo has. So if you have a DH spot, you got to get.
Well,
We'll get
there. We'll get there. Let's talk outfield first.
I think you have to play Stanton in the outfield and hope for the best. Hope he doesn't get hurt. I mean, otherwise you have to sit Voit if Stanton takes the DH position. But I think you just got to get Voit's bat in there.
So again, center field. So center fielder Judge goes to center.
Yeah. I think you don't.
Or Gallo. I think Gallo can play. He's played center.
But I mean, so then you move Judge to left. I mean, is that going to be your three out? Is that going to be your three outfielders? If we play,
that's what I would do in the playoffs. Absolutely. And I like Jack. I would DH Voit and I'd play Rizzo at first. I think the big question is who plays short.
Well, here we go. So we got Rizzo at first, and who's playing second? Are we going to LeMahieu? Okay, shortstop. We keep Velasquez there. Is that what we're going to do?
I think that's the big question. I mean, it's Gleyber's position, but he has not really been good. Wasn't really great last year. He's not great defensively. Velasquez is much better defensively. Even Tyler Wade's much better defensively. And Velasquez and Wade both are left-handed hitters. And if you go to Torres, you start, and with Urshela at third, you get back to the same old thing about too many righties in a row. But boy, do you lose your position if you're Gleyber Torres because you got hurt and a no-name guy who just has a great story like Velasquez takes your position? I think in a playoff game, when defense matters and every little inch matters, I think I play Velasquez and Torres. We'll worry about that next year. We'll worry about his feelings. Yankees have to go out there and win every game they can, and I think they're a better team right now with the better defensive shortstop than Gleyber.
You took the words out of my mouth. Feelings. Okay, we always care, especially a manager, about players' feelings, but you got to think short term here. I mean, Gleyber Torres in the big picture, I put him over Velasquez. As a talent, but short term, you need stability. Between Velasquez, Tyler Wade, it's a better bet. You can't throw Gleyber Torres in right now and hope he starts improving at this point in the season. And it's a predicament. Gleyber Torres' feelings are going to take a bit of a hit, but you have to do what's best short term. And Velasquez and Wade at least give you stability, in the shortstop
and
position.
Athleticism, and they hit left-handed, and they can run better. And you know what? Aaron Boone, who I have criticized, did do this last year in the playoffs. He played Higashioka over Gary Sanchez because Higashioka was the better player at the time.
So here we go. So who's your catcher for the playoffs? I mean, are you going to start Sanchez? Or are you just going to let Higo come in just for Cole, or does he play and Sanchez sits? What do you do there?
I think Sanchez has not lost his position this year, and so I wouldn't have any trouble starting Gary Sanchez.
One game playoff, though,
if it's Cole, yeah.
If Cole is on the mound, I mean it's a tough pill for Sanchez to swallow with all the marbles there being on the bench since he's kind of turned things around. But you have to do what makes Garrett Cole feel most comfortable in a one-game playoff. It's his feelings, that matter the most.
I agree.
So on the bench, then we do have Odor, who can play a variety of infielders, good hitter, right? And we got DH, and I agree with you all. We probably want to put Voit in for that one game at least, but it does open a lot of possibilities of coming off the bench with you got. Listen, you got Gardner coming off the bench. You still got Torres if he's healthy coming off the bench. And if Higa's playing, then you got Sanchez off the bench for any lefty, righty, whatever you want to do there. I think that gives you the best lineup too, guys. I really do.
Let me ask you guys a question. Okay, Matt, tell me what you would do. Let's say the Yankees are playing a wild card game. They're up 3-2 at the end of 7 innings. Stanton is probably going to get one at-bat later, but they're up 3-2. Do you bring Gardner in for defense? They're holding a 1-run lead. Or do you keep Stanton out there thinking, well, he'll have one more chance to hit? I bring Gardner in for defense. You're up 1 run, and don't worry about the possibilities later. But it could haunt you. The Yankees could fall behind 4-3, and in Stanton's slot, you might have Gardner coming up, and you might be kicking yourself for that later. What do you guys do?
I do what you do. I played the better defensive player in the last few innings to try to win the game.
If I know Stan's coming up, for sure, if he's the third batter in the first three, I keep Stanton in. If there's a chance he might not come up.
Even with a one-run lead, even though you have
Oh,
a
yeah.
one-run lead, you're chancing him in the outfield a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, I would because I don't know what the other team's going to do. If I don't know what our reliever is going to do, I would keep Stanton in there if I know for sure he's coming up. Now, if he's the fourth or fifth batter, I move Gardner. That's what I would do.
Here, let me just take a quick step backwards here. You ready for the Yankees in the 1980s? In 82, they were not good. That's what the year when they were going to go to speed and all that. They won 79 games. But then starting in 83, they won 91 games. In 84, they won 87 games. In 85, they won 97 games. In 86, they won 90 games. And in 87, they won 89 games. 88, they still won 85 games. And that after that 88 season is when the bottom fell out. 74 wins, 67, 71, 76. Those were those bad years at the end of the 80s. But through the 80s, the Yankees were winning, 90 games oftentimes and high 80s oftentimes. They were a pretty good ball club.
Wait, the 1 year you said they won 97 games in 85? And
that is correct.
And that's the year the Kansas City Royals won the World Series. The Yankees didn't go to the playoffs that year.
They did not, no.
I'm not sure who Kansas City beat in the playoffs. I don't remember. But
the Yankees were in second place, 2 games out.
The 1 year that kills me with the Yankees was the strike year 94, when they had the best record in the American League. And the Montreal Expos, as far as their legacy goes, they had the best record. I always wonder what would have happened if that season continued.
Well, guys, backstage right now, we got a guy that's been coming on. He didn't make it. I think the last week, of course, I was out. Jack was down. But Brett's been coming on with us pretty regularly. Brett Kell from Binging Baseball, spelled binging. And he knows everything about baseball, that from the minors up to the pros. And I got a real interesting article I want to go over with him about an independent league. And we're going to talk to him a little bit about that and maybe a little bit about the Northeast Streaming Sports new American Baseball League. It's coming soon, folks. I guarantee you that. So let's bring up Brett Kell from Binging Baseball. How you doing, Brett?
Good morning, guys. Man,
So,
your
Brett,
Yankees are on fire right now.
Yeah, we've been talking about it a lot. So, Brett,
13 in a row.
this is my co-host, of course, Jack
Yes.
Hirsch. And then up top there is from Start Spreading the News, New York Yankees blog. And he'll be doing a YouTube show for us coming Monday, folks, called Start Spreading the News with Dr. E.J. Fagan, a Yankee expert. So we got the Yankees in, we got you in, and of course me and Jack, we kind of just we give it our best shot. So that's what we do. So Brett, we've been talking Yankees, we've been talking Major League Baseball, and I came across this article about the Atlantic. Let me see if I get this. The Atlantic Baseball League. Let me get the exact name of them. It's Independent Baseball League, and they're the ones that have a signed partnership with the MLB about all the new rules and changes that they want to do. It's the Atlantic League division or league, and they just started to move the mound back a foot. And again, they're receiving money from Major League Baseball to try all these new rule changes that they're doing. And one of the players is saying, of course, this is no longer baseball. And the Atlantic League is getting, as I said, paid by Major League Baseball. But the players are not being compensated for this. They threatened a work stoppage. And then the Atlantic League came and told them, well, listen, if you want to do a work stoppage, something may happen to your careers.
Well, something may happen to their careers because, or at least with the pitchers, because of that trying to now redo your breaking ball. Now you're messing with your mechanics and all that kind of stuff. Then where's your shoulder happens and your elbow. But and they're not the only league that are making changes. The old Pioneer League, which was I believe rookie ball, they they're doing the extra inning home run derby, and there's about 4 or 5 partner leagues of the independent teams. The Atlantic League is actually going to be growing this next year with a couple new teams because the Salem Red Sox are moving up to Lowell, where they used to have the Lowell Spinners, which is the Red Sox affiliate, and then Salem's going to get a Atlantic League team, and then Staten Island, which used to be the Staten Island Yankees, are now going to be picking up they just folded after they lost their minor league affiliation. They're getting an Atlantic team up there also.
So I mean, what I read was that this is where they're also doing the automatic balls and strikes. Not allowing the players to play far from their positions. Stricter positions where you can't overshift. And I don't know about you, Brett. And of course, making the bases wider too. I had to throw that in there too, so that the bases are wider. I mean, it makes it a little bit more easier to steal, a little bit more easier on the stretch too. So all these rules coming up, how much is this going to change baseball? If these rules come in, Brett, how much is this going to change baseball in the future?
Well, and right now they're also the automatic balls and strikes. They're using that in Florida, the old Florida State League, with those affiliated teams are using that to end the season. And like I was listening to I can't remember who I was listening to, but it was one of the Florida High A teams down there, and the other day, and they said that the umpire kept on flinching because he wanted to call a strike, but the computer didn't say in his ear that it was a strike, and you can tell that the umpire is a little flinchy on it. So they'll change it a little bit there, but they've also had the clock down there, and they have not implemented the clock in the majors. And it was something that they tried out and saw what it was like. But there is a little weirdness with the automatic ball strike, because one league is actually using an inch outside the plate, and I'm like, well, what? That's changing the rules. You expand the plate or you don't, because the plate is the strike zone. The up and down from there is the strike zone. So because they've had a few on the automatic ball strikes that are coming out and batters aren't swinging at it because they're so used to, if it's not over the plate, I'm not swinging at it if it's outside or inside. And so but they even said the umpires are a little flinchy on the wanting to turn and call that strike, and they're not doing it because the computer's not telling them to do it. So
yeah. So guys, what do you think in this automatic strike zone? I mean, the best strike zone I've seen called all year was in the Field of Dreams. They had that across the chest, the knees, the corners. They were calling the game was moving right along. I love that game. I love what the umps did. But umpires do have their own zones. We know that. Some have it from the knee to the waist. I mean, and they don't call the corners as much as others. And there is a difference in the zone. What do you think the umpires union is going to do about this? A pretty powerful union in Major League Baseball. Are they going to let that happen with the automatic strike zone? Does it make it less responsibility for them? Or are they going to get upset with their pride that, what are you doing with the automatic strike zone? I'll call a strike zone. So what do you think about that? Jack, first you, what do you think about that?
I mean, you said it best. The umpires have their own strike zone. And I think it's pretty pathetic that batters have to have a scouting report on umpires, knowing what their strike zone is. It should be consistent across the board, and the umpire should adjust to whatever the strike zone has to be. And, it's a problem. But do we want to take all the human element out of the game? I mean, I could understand with replay, we're getting used to it, on the basis, certain calls being overturned. I understand that. But the strike zone is the one area I would leave alone. I wouldn't have any replay on it. I would just kind of educate the umpires a little more that they all have to have the same strike zone. So when the hitters get up, they don't have to figure out like what umpire likes to call the ball low, a little higher. I think there just has to be complete consistency there.
And Doc, how about you? Let's go off the automated thing for a second. Just making the bases wider. I mean, that has complications. I mean, people are going to be safe more because the bag is there. Maybe the stretch is a little bit better, stealing bases. We want them to steal more bases. I mean, we want small ball to come back somewhat. But does that affect the game? I mean, does it affect the outcome of some games? It would, I would think, right?
Yeah, right. Baseball's a game of inches, right? And you're going to make the bases bigger. It's going to change everything. I'm not a big fan of these rules where they're going to absolutely totally change what baseball's all about. I think there are ways to speed up the game and make the game more compelling. All these things to me are a result of like what's become called three true outcome baseball, right? You're either going to walk, you're either going to strike out, or you're either going to hit a home run. And they're trying to find ways to make the action on the field be more exciting. That's what we want to see. We want to see people trying to catch the ball, throw the ball, and runners trying to take extra bases and getting hits and driving home runs. That's how we watch the game. And that doesn't happen as much anymore because pitchers are walking a lot of guys, and if they're not walking them, they're striking them out. And then when guys are hitting, they're trying to hit home runs. And so they're trying to combat that by making some of these rules that, to be honest with you, I don't really like most of them. I don't have a problem with some of them. We could go through each one. I don't know how boring that would be, but I don't like making the bases bigger. The bases are the bases. Leave them alone.
Brett, I was listening to the show. Let me put it this way: former pitcher in the Major League Baseball, and he said they're pulling pitchers at 6 innings, throwing as much pitches as pitchers in the old days would throw in 9 innings. So, is this why they're pulling pitchers so soon now? Are the pitchers that much worse than they were back then? Is the control that much worse? Where in 6 innings, they're throwing almost 100 pitches. And back in the days when he pitched, the Glavine days, the Guidry days, they were pitching 100 pitches in 9 innings almost. Has baseball gotten that flooded with average players?
Well, I think what it is also is a lot of the batters now are bulked up. I mean, baseball used to be a lean muscle sport. You didn't want to be huge. You wouldn't have that speed. You want to be a 5-tool guy. But now you bulk up. You might lose a little speed, a little little bit extra when you as a defensive player and things like that. And so now a lot more guys can hit home runs. They have the maple bats compared to the ash bats, and so there's a lot of differences now compared to 80s and before. So,
Brett, what do you think about what I was asking about? The pitchers pitching as many pitches in 5-6 innings as they used to in 8-9 innings.
Well, now the pitchers aren't throwing as many strikes because they're not trying to get the ball across, because now these guys are bulked up. Now they're hitting a lot more home runs, so they're trying not to give up those home runs to the guys that are now bulked up compared to the lean muscle. A good example maybe like a Frank White and a Harold Reynolds. They weren't very big home run hitting guys. Now you have second basemen like Jose Altuve that just want to jack the ball out of the park every single time. If you want to go position by position there, second baseman, you had two Gold Glove winning second basemen all the time. They were just more of a slap hitter, and they were getting on base, and you still get the guy out with a double play or some trying to steal a base, something like that. Guy hits a home run, you can't get him out anymore. So
yeah, but with them home runs, Brett, comes strikeouts. They're striking out more than they ever did.
Yeah.
So I understand what you're saying, and I'll wait to see how great these home run hitters are when they hit more than 60 home runs. We'll find out. The point I'm making though is that it seems to me, and maybe my opinion is wrong, is that there's so many teams and so many players now that the stars aren't really the stars anymore. I mean, you got some. You got Trout. You got Ohtani, who could be a star way back when. But you got these other players that are playing that aren't as good as they were back then because we got so many teams and so many players now.
Well, that is true. We've only expanded two teams or 4 teams in the last 20 years, 20 or 30 years. And that's the Rockies, the Diamondbacks, the Marlins and the Rays, and so we didn't dilute the pool so much. Because before that, it was the 70s that we had an expansion. So, but it's also that guys aren't taught. As the old saying goes, the old Maddox and Glavine commercial, chicks dig the long ball. So, it's a lot more guys are wanting to hit that home runs because they want to get paid. They want to get that they don't want to just be that slap hitter that gets on base all the time and because look at Whit Merrifield for years, the last couple of years, just been getting on base, and isn't paid like certain other players that are driving the ball out of the park that have a lesser average, lesser on base percentage, lesser RBIs and all that because they're getting the ball out of the park.
Yeah, I guess.
If you look at the stats across the board, Merrifield should probably be paid double what he's paid, but it's not getting that way. I mean, people would consider him a lesser player because he didn't come up until he was older, but he's every year now just batting like crazy.
So Jack, what do you think about two things they're bringing up that Brett brought up, the rule changes, right? You have the shift. They're trying to limit the shift. I think it's ridiculous. I want to know your opinion. Ian, the home run derby. Is this going to be like soccer and hockey with penalty point kicks and stuff?
Okay, speaking of the shift, I mean, let's compare it to zone defense in basketball. That's outlawed. I mean, and there's a school of thought that hitters should learn to hit to all fields. But realistically, that's not going to happen. I mean, some guys are born pull hitters. They're always going to be pull hitters. And the shift goes back to even Ted Williams' time. Ted Williams, the greatest pure hitter of all time. I'm not saying necessarily the greatest hitter, but the greatest pure hitter. He studied hitting unlike any other hitter. And Ted Williams couldn't even solve the problem. He always wondered, you tried to beat the shift, to hit through it, you tried to hit around it. There's like no real answer, there. And I'm not sure. I don't have a firm feeling yet whether you should outlaw the shift or not. There's nothing wrong with saying you just don't know. And I just don't know what the answer is right now. But I know it really works well against pull hitters. And what was the second one, Mac?
The home run derby.
The home run derby. I love it. And it's purists hate it, okay? Purists hate it. But I like the idea you play a 10th inning, and if it's still tied, you go through your whole lineup of 9, 10 guys, so whether you have a DH or not, and you let your own batting practice pitcher pitch to them, and whoever has more total homers. Listen, what's the most entertaining thing in all of baseball? It's the home run. People absolutely love it. Listen, penalty kicks in soccer have become a little boring. The shootout in the NHL has become a little boring. The long ball's never going to be boring in baseball. You go through your lineup. The fans will be at the edge of the seat. They love watching the ball fly out. And you can't let these games go on forever, Mac. I remember a classic, one of the classic games in Yankee history, the one where Jeter made the catch and dove into the stands in 2004. I took one of my daughters, who was a teenager at the time, to the ball game. I kept telling her, it's going to end soon, it's going to end soon, it's going to end soon. And we're sitting through 14 beautiful innings to me, but brutal innings for her, because she wasn't a baseball fan. The game was never ending. I mean, in the game, 9-inning games are long enough. And to go through these extra inning games, you just have to look at the stands and see the way they've emptied out as the games went along. Ending it with a home run derby is exciting. If you're a purist, I understand you hate it. But to me, I like it. It's a way to, keep up with the times.
Doc, what do you think about that? I saw you shaking your head, and I'm shaking my head too. I mean, if you're going to, all the play those 9 players do, all the great defensive efforts, the great pitching performances, don't mean squat. It's tied. We're going to let everybody have hitting practice. I don't like that. How about you?
I agree with you. I hate it. I think it's a novelty. It's trying to come up with a gimmick. One of the things about baseball, one of the things that's beautiful about baseball is there's no time limit. The game is endless. And in theory, a game could last forever, right? As long as it stays tied and it keeps going. And you know what? There's always going to be times. My kids love baseball. I took them to Yankee games when they were little, and there were times the games got long and they got late, and sometimes you have to leave. But you don't sacrifice the integrity of the game and come up with a home run. We were talking about the Royals and Frank White and the Mariners with Harold Reynolds and things like that. Think about some of the great teams. I'm thinking of like the mid-'80 Royals or the mid-'80 Cardinals. Those were very good teams. They didn't have a lot of home run hitters on those teams. Those were gap teams, right? You had Willie Wilson hitting the ball in the gap and Amos Otis. And with the Cardinals, you had, guys like Tommy Herr and Ozzie Smith. Those teams who were really great teams would be at a huge disadvantage if at the end of the game you go, oh, now you just got to hit home runs. They wouldn't be able to do it. I would hate it. I would hate that.
So Brett, what is your opinion on stuff like? I mean, I don't mind speeding up the game. The batter doesn't have to get out of the batter's box every time he takes a swing or takes a pitch. The pitcher doesn't have to go off the mound every 2 pitches. The pitching coach doesn't have to go out there 10 times. I mean, there's a way to say, hey, let's just play ball. Let's just get this going. You're in the box, you stay in the box. You're on the mound, you get the ball, you get back on the mound, you throw the ball. I mean, why can't we just do that? Why do we got to come up with, all these different things to try to change the game? And we can speed up the game. Just play real baseball and have a little bit of pitch counts.
Exactly. There's little things you can do. First thing I want to address though is Jack. I know Jack was a closet Red Sox fan, as he pointed out Ted Williams there. But there's lots of the Little League World Series. Or, the Little League has you can't step out of both feet out of the box. And they have a few other rules that kind of speed up their games. But yeah, I definitely like Nomar used to sit there and adjust it, go like that 20 times around his batting gloves there. There's lots of things you can do to speed up the game. That there are little things that will definitely speed up the game, and you just got to get the players doing it and have the umpires regulating it, just like how the umpires are now regulating the gloves and the sticky substances. There's little things you can do that can speed up the game. Now they have to also look at things like the sticky substance. That slows down the game right there because they're now looking at stopping the game, looking at the guy, checking him, but. They also now, speaking of that sticky substance, it just reminded me, they are looking at a somewhat tactified ball now to be using in Major League Baseball. So, the players aren't going to go for a sticky substance of some kind. Yeah.
I mean, listen, they have made the batters, they have given the advantage to the batters since they lowered the mound. I mean, the tar, the laces are tighter to the ball than they have ever been. It's harder for the pitcher to get a grip on the ball. I mean, they have done it so we get more offense, and maybe we've gotten more power. I don't know if we've gotten more offense. I don't know. I know it's the pitchers, the pitchers that are on radio talking right now. They're not happy with the way baseball's going, and I don't blame them. I really don't, because to me, there's nothing better than a 3-2 game with 2 pitchers and great baseball playing and maybe 1 or 2 home runs. To me, that's a great game. I don't have to see 8 home runs. You think I enjoy watching the Yankees hit 6 home runs? I don't care. That doesn't matter to me. He hits at 450 feet. Just driving some runs. That does nothing for me. I really doesn't. I mean, if it's that easy to hit a home run now, what does it matter anymore? Who's the special players now, right? You say second basemen are hitting home runs. Shortstops are hitting 30 home runs. What does it matter anymore? Does it really matter about home runs?
Yeah. Salvador Perez right now is having a career year with his home runs, and he's a catcher, and he's always been viewed more of an average hitter with great defense to a guy that now is just jacking the ball out over and over. He's had two nights in a row of grand slams, so that's, and now the talk around here is Salvi an MVP candidate, or Shohei just ran away with it altogether.
Yeah, well, we've talked.
Don't get me started on that one.
So, Jack, I don't think the significance of the home run really matters anymore. I mean, if everybody's hitting home runs, what does it matter? So I get up, I have a batter, I get a home run. The next batter behind me hits a home run. 2 batters later, they hit a home run. So what? What does it matter?
It's so analytic now, the way they judge things. It's not like it used to be. A guy can be a 290 hitter, another guy could be a 220 hitter, but the guy who hits 220 could have a lot of walks, get on base more, and they'll determine he has more value. It's, the Billy Beane effect. I mean, it's really caught on in baseball. There used to be a big thing with Mickey Mantle. He used to strike out a ton of times, but he walked a ton of times, and the walks mean a lot more. The strikeouts, I don't want to say are relevant because it's always important to put the ball in play because you never know what's going to happen. But striking out a lot isn't a big deal anymore. Look, Joey Gallo with the Yankees. I mean, he strikes out a ton of times, but that's not going to diminish his value in the eyes of the Yankees front office.
Doc, do you think does it matter? I mean, does it matter the home run anymore? Honestly. I mean, yeah, it mattered when, your big power guy got up and drove in 3 runs. Now your 9th batter hits a solo. First batter hits a solo. 3rd batter hits a 2-run. What does it matter anymore? It's like a base hit to me now. It's not special.
Well, I think you're getting to that great question of what makes something special, right? If you have something in abundance, and that makes each of the individual things less special. And so the home run has lost a lot of its luster because so many guys are hitting home runs. That being said, like the Yankees had a bunch of home runs last night, when it's your team, you want them to be hitting home runs. At least I do, because I want them to win, right? I want the Yankees to win. So if the Yankees win because Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge are hitting home runs and Luke Voigt and Kyle Higashioka, that's great. That's fun. But from a pure baseball standpoint, it is less fun. And when you're watching the highlights, like on ESPN or in Major League Baseball Network or anything, it gets tedious. Hey, watch, here's this guy, Fernando Tatis, hit one out, boom. Then this guy hit one out, boom. Then this guy hit one out. The beauty of baseball isn't watching the plethora of home runs. It's really wanting to watch the great play that happens all over the field, and the highlights highlighting home runs really take away from all of the nuances of the game that make the game special. What pitch does he throw on 3-2? How about the fact that they turned that double play in that big spot? The guy made a bunt and he moved the runner over. He hit the opposite way to get the guy to third so that he would score. 2 nights ago, the Yankees won the game, not really because of the home run, but because Tyler Wade pinch ran, stole second, went to third on a wild pitch, and then Aaron Judge, instead of swinging from his heels, hit a bloop single to right, and that was the game-winning RBI. So
Brett, I know we don't have enough time to get this in, but next time you're on, I got to do this. I told you we're going to compete with the Major League Baseball. We're going to open our own league, and I want you because you know all kinds of crazy names. I got a lot of people working on this, but right now I got a 12-team league set up. 2 divisions. And it's going to be called the American Baseball League. All right, we're going to have teams from Central and South America playing against southern state of the United States that don't have Major League Baseball affiliated with it. So you're going to see teams. We're going to have teams from the Dominican Republic, Mexico, Brazil, Puerto Rico, maybe Cuba. That's a little iffy because the politics there. But we're going to try and get Cuba in there. So we're going to have like 4 teams from down there. And then in Mississippi, Louisiana, Southern Arkansas, New Mexico, Southern Utah, we're going to have seven teams from there. It's going to be a 12-person league. And it's going to be up to the Central and South American governments and their thing to get their all-star teams together. And I guarantee you, because down there baseball is so popular, and they'll want to beat the United States so bad, and the competition between them is going to be so rough. They're going to sell out their stadiums down there. They're going to have 50,000 people down there at their games. Us, I don't know about. We're going to have to get the states behind us. So, but we're going to affiliate it with teams, states that don't have Major League Baseball. It's only going to be a short season. We're going to divide it along that boundary. Southern United States and the South America, Central America teams. And we're going to play just after the Super Bowl and play just before Major League Baseball starts. So I need some names for some teams. I'm going to get with you on this. And we're going to draft players from college because I found out through personal contacts that when they get the rights to somebody, they don't give them a lot of money, Brett. One of the guys got offered $250 for rights for not to play college. We can beat that easy. And we're going to get some of the older stars that just retired. We're going to bring them back and let them play in our league. Just so we
There's
get a little
something
bit
like that right now. It just started. It's the Savannah Bananas and the Macon Bacon, which are collegiate teams. This spring, and now they had to end because of COVID, but they have guys that are minor league players that never really made it to the majors, and they brought back some former major leaguers, and they played what's called the Breakfast Bowl, which is the bacon versus bananas. And they were playing a 9-game series, and then but earlier this year it had a Harlem Globetrotter style where it was the Bananas versus the Wild Thing, and the owner of the Bananas owned both teams, and they have weigh-ins, they have to start the game. They had a pitcher the other night that came out as Ric Flair, and he wore tights, and then they have Savannah Banana underwear. He had the underwear pulled up over the tights, and that's all he wore. He had no shirt on. They've had a guy go out there.
That's
so but the cool thing about that, the Globetrotter style baseball, they had the Bananas versus the Wild Thing, but it wasn't like the Wild Thing were throwing the games. Yeah. They won some of the games, and they were supposed to, but they go out and they have a blast. You should really look into the Savannah Bananas. They're I forget what they call their premier team is what I think they call it. But they have the college teams in the summer, but before and after the summer they have their premier team.
Brett, you got me all excited, and it just deflated me at the end there. I mean, I was all excited that this was going to happen, and then you threw the Globetrotters at me.
Well, I think it's hard to do in Central America because they have their Caribbean series every year.
I agree
for the winter.
But think about this, Brett. Think about all these teams down there putting together an all-star teams to go against each other and to beat the United States teams. I think it would be awesome. I think they'd be all in. I think the problem would be the United States.
Well, if we actually expand the Arizona Fall League to go against the Caribbean series, to have like a north of the border, south of the border, into the championship or an all-star game, that'd be fun. Or even like the Australian Baseball League would get maybe get involved in that. It'd be something fun to do. I've been thinking about indoor winter baseball, trying to find places where you can play indoor winter games that you could have 6, 7, 8 teams, and you play indoors. Because I look at our arena here in Topeka, I'm thinking, how can we do this where there's some arenas are made for basketball or hockey. They have fixed seating, and there's other ones that they can push the seating back a little bit, and even just try to figure out some way to do that. Because I even thought like our arena we could probably do softball, but we can't do baseball. But it'd be fun to have like a way where you could play a baseball game
indoor
in the
stadium.
wintertime.
Indoor stadium. Let's see. This is why I got to put you on this, Brett, because I think that you have a lot of connections too down there in the independent league. So folks, we're going to take our break now. Brett, thanks for coming in. I mean, you always add a lot to our discussion. You know a lot about all baseball, and we love having you on.
Like county captains on today. It's the Cleveland Indians High A affiliate.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about. He'll tell you who plays on it too. This is the great thing about it.
And Jack had to cover up his closet Red Sox fandom.
Let me tell you, Ted Williams could play for me anytime.
He was one of the greatest hitters, but he could not coach hitting.
Oh, wait. Eddie Brinkman, a shortstop.
I was just going to go to Eddie Brinkman. I was just going to do that.
He had the weakest bat, and Ted Williams turned him into a decent hitter when he managed, the Washington baseball team. The
stories I heard about Ted is he'd get so mad at batting practice and other things like that, he'd step in at his older age, start jacking the ball out, and throw his bat down, screaming and yelling because he didn't understand why the guys couldn't do it.
Look up
And-
Eddie Brinkman when he played for the
do that.
Washington Senators, what Ted
read
Williams
the book My
did to
Turn
him.
at Bat by Ted Williams. Great
Yeah,
book.
but it's just one of sometimes the greatest. Because like me with Little League, I start them all exactly the same, then I'd adjust them. And some coaches want everyone to do exactly the same thing, and
Brett, you're right. Some of the biggest stars have problems coaching, but Jack and Paul, when you say something with Doc and Jack on here, you better be ready to. These guys know their stuff. So
It's funny the way some guys could adjust. People don't realize that Joe Torre hit 363 one year. People don't realize that, and he was very patient with guys who one of his caliber. So you're right. It all depends. Some superstars like Ted Williams maybe didn't have the complete patience. I don't know. Is that the case with Ted Williams? You're telling me that is. I'll take it your word. But,
we got to get going, Brett. Again, thanks for coming in. We'll see you next week. And hopefully we got our owners and our team names and we're ready to go.
And we should pick teams next week on our playoffs, because it's getting to that point where there's only like 32 games left in the season.
We will do that. We will do that, Brett. We will pick our teams who's going to win it all next week. That's a great idea. Thanks for coming in, Brett. Have a great day, my friend. So there you go, folks. Brett Kell. Great guy, knows his baseball stuff. And, folks, we're going to be right back after these messages.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner? Hey.
Going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things.
I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink? Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol.
If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble. Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma.
I love you too.
Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's the first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, though, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Try.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on Thursday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. Today is our, yes, folks, we're going to get to it finally. We're going to get to our debate show as we talked a lot about the Yankees today, where they're positioned in their playoffs and how if it ended today, the Red Sox and Yankees would have a one-game playoff before going on to play the Rays right now. That would be a tough series also. Winning that game and playing against the Rays for a series would be a very tough way to get there. But
it would be a Yankee Stadium if it ended today, too, because they have the better record. That's interesting.
It definitely would.
Anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Anything you can be.
So, folks, in the second hour, since we've changed the format, trying to keep all the weekly guests that you love in, we changed it to debate in the last hour. I was a little, with me and Jack being so busy and what we were doing, we weren't able to inform the Doc of the topics today. So Doc is going to be winging it today, which is very enjoyable to watch him do that. He'll be
now. If all the questions are about basketball and the
right.
NBA or something, and hockey, I'm really up the creek.
That's you're becoming like us. Mac and I actually wing it all the time.
Doc, we not only do we have hockey and basketball, we also have badminton topics in there.
Oh, excellent!
I'm just
best
kidding.
Badminton player in the world.
Yes. That. Believe it or not, it's a sport. Anyway.
It is. It's harder than everybody thinks, too. People go out and they buy badminton sets and they think, oh, this will be fun. And then they set it all up in the backyard and they get that net up. It takes forever to get that net up. And then they play for like 10 seconds and they realize it's hard to hit that little birdie and get it over the net and have somebody return it. And it becomes a big frustration. That's a hard sport. Much harder than people think.
I will going down that avenue real quick. I have watched the badminton championships. I'm just intrigued with stuff like that. And boy, I couldn't play that. I mean, them guys are good. They'll go behind the back, through the legs, hitting, as hard as you can hit a thing. It's crazy. So, Jack, I know you've been dying to do this one. So I kind of smiled when this topic came up. So, do the Mets, or should the Mets regret signing Lindor to that big 11-year, $34 million contract.
$341 million deal.
Yes.
11 years. And let me start off by saying I hate revisionist thinking. I hate it with a passion, okay? A few months ago, the Mets were New York's team as far as baseball went. It wasn't the Yankees. They bypassed the Yankees. Let's be honest about it. It was kind of in a way, it had a feel in 1986 all over again, where the Yankees were a good team, but the Mets were clearly better. The buzz was surrounding the Mets, new owner Steve Cohen. The Yankees were kind of becoming a little bit old news. They had some issues. The Yankees had a good team, a contending team, but the Mets were the team of the future. And Steve Cohen felt he needed to make a splash. So they get Lindor in the trade, okay? They only had to give up, for the most part, Ahmad Rosario, the other shortstop, who wasn't as good as Lindor. So they felt, and Lindor was going to become a free agent at the end of the year. And Lindor said to the Mets, I don't sign before the year. I'm not negotiating during the year. To me, that's fine. But Steve Cohen got so concerned that Met fans would think that they're not committed, they're not this. They were so image conscious, the Mets, to want to let everyone know they turn over a new leaf. They signed Lindor to free agent money, astounding money, $31 million a year for 11 years. He's 27 years old. It takes him up to age 38. Kind of not quite on the Robinson Cano mistake level that was made, which thankfully the Yankees didn't go to 10 years, but way too long. way too long, especially if, and this isn't revisionist thinking with me. I hated it at the time, okay? I thought it was a lousy thing to do at the time, especially if you do your homework. There's so many high caliber free agent shortstops that are going to become available. And let's say the Mets didn't sign Lindor to that crazy money, and Lindor had a great year, and the Mets win the World Series. So you give them a little more. I mean, how much do they think the other teams are going to give them? Let's make believe the Mets did not sign Lindor to that contract, and he was playing it out as a free agent. Look at the way things unfolding. You think anyone would give Lindor an 11-year deal? Crazy. No. Let's say some team, for some crazy reason, would give Lindor an 8-year deal, which I can't imagine for the life of me the way he is now. It wouldn't be $31 million. It would be more like $21 million a year, perhaps $10 million less or whatever. And it was just a crazy, dumb thing, because the thing is with these long-term deals, like an 11-year deal, you have to think of the back end of the contract, where the guy's going to be. I mean, George Steinbrenner was bold with Derek Jeter. He signed him to a 10-year deal, but he was 25 years old. He figured at 35, he could still perform till that age. But once you get to be over 35 years old, and I hate this mentality, well, we'll sign him for 11, but if he gives us 7 decent years, we're fine. No, you're not. The back end of the contract is a killer. I think the Mets still have 2 years with Robinson Cano next year that they're going to have to deal with. It's crazy. It's insane. And the problem with all ownership, guys, is that they can't think down the line. Listen, I could have gone either way with the Garrett Cole contract. That was a 9-year deal, $36 million a year. I was worried the back end of it. Yankees took a chance. I was still iffy. 7 years left on that deal. But the Yankees were desperate. They were desperate for an ace. Cole had gotten away from them a couple of times. But back to Lindor, insane with all the other shortstops up there. You're paying him like he's an absolute superstar. And one last thing on Lindor, his performances had been gently slipping to the point where they signed them too. So I hated it at the time, and I don't want to say, I'm validated in that, but it's just a lousy deal that the Mets are going to regret.
Well, Jack, what I've seen is this is just the way it is now. I mean, look, they signed Tatis to that big contract. He's hurt, and he's not playing that well this year. And, they're thinking about moving him to the outfield now, for God's sakes. He was signed as a shortstop. Lindor is still 27 years old, Jack. You're right. The stats have come down a little bit. I mean, if you go back, he was batting high 280s, 300, hitting in 3 years. He had 33, 38, and 32 home runs, over 30, almost 40 in 2018. So RBI totals were pretty good too. I mean, he's in the high 70s, 90s. So, I mean, I agree that I don't like any of the contracts, believe it or not, right now, but it's just the way it is. You brought up Cole. I was going to bring him up too. Who's to say within 3 years he loses his fastball? He loses his stuff. 27 years old, Jack. Now, if he was 30 years old and they gave him an 11-year contract, that would be totally obscene. But this is what it is today. You talk about Cano. They picked up Cano's contract. They didn't sign him. They had to take Cano as part of the deal. I forget who the other player was involved with that. That was
Edwin Diaz.
That was part of the deal. That's why they got Cano. It wasn't because they wanted Cano. They had to take him off their hands, and they thought for Diaz that was a good deal. So in today's game, for some reason, that's the way it is. I don't think Lindor is a bad. I think he's above average shortstop. And I think his batting average and his home run output lately, not counting last year because you're talking a 60-game season, and of course this year with the problems he's been having with injuries and stuff. But when he's healthy, he's one of the best hitting shortstops in the league. The Mets had to make a move. They had to get a couple free agents. I don't think it was a It was just a deal he had to sign to get that man there. And between him and McCann, you could say McCann was maybe a little too much too for McCann. But that's the way baseball is today. I mean, we got Aaron Judge coming up. Do you think Aaron Judge is going to be worth 13 years or 12 years for $30 million a year? Of course he's not. But that's the way baseball is today. If you want a player like that, if they're not going to sign him, somebody else is going to. And we see what happened with Stanton, right? Do you think Stanton has been worth that to the Yankees? We picked up his contract. Of course he's not worth what he's being paid. He's having a decent year so far, but recent history, terrible contract. So I'm not ready to throw in the towel on Lindor yet. You got to give him another year or two. And even at 8 years, he'll be 35. 41 at 11. That's too old to play shortstop. But who's to say he can't play first base? Who's to say he can't play in the outfield somewhere? Who's to say where they can use him or can't use him? I just know that's the move he had to make to secure Lindor and show the Mets fans that he was serious. If he didn't do something, if he didn't sign McCann or Lindor, the Mets fans would have been all up in, oh, I got all this money, you're a new owner. What are you doing? You're not trying to help the team. It's something he felt he had to do. I don't have a problem with the signing, Jack. I really don't. What do you think, Doc?
Yeah, you know what? I was a big guy. I wanted the Yankees to get Lindor. And I think really it just comes down to the bigger question. You know, you look at Lindor, Mac, you made the great point that he had all those great seasons before last year. He was hitting 30 home runs a year. He was, like a 5-WAR player. He's worth 5 wins more than the typical shortstop. That's a great player. That's an elite talent. Was not great last year, and then this year he's not doing great. So you look at the deal and you go, boy, oh boy, they should have seen he wasn't great in 2020, though it was a shortened season. This year he's terrible. He's having a bad year. That's a horrific signing, but he is only 27, and I think the Mets had to go big. And again, I wanted the Yankees to go big. I wanted the Yankees to get him and to move Gleyber Torres to shortstop. I think it really becomes the big question of how much you let the big contract dictate how much you can do otherwise around it. So like when the Rangers signed A-Rod to that big deal in the early 2000s, whatever it was, 2004 or whatever it was, that contract basically was their entire budget. And so they couldn't put any players around him, and A-Rod then sunk the team because they couldn't build around him. If that's what happens with Lindor, the Mets made a terrible deal. Like they're investing everything into a shortstop who, isn't performing. I still think he'll come back and he'll probably be very good. He's only going to be 28 next year. He's entering his prime. Everybody has down years sometimes, but let's say he's not good. And if that's the contract and everybody else they have to skimp around that, they've made a terrible deal. What teams have to do, like the Yankees and like the Dodgers, the big money teams, the Red Sox, the Mets, is if you go all in, you have to go all in. Lindor's got to be a piece of the puzzle. We're paying him a ton, and now we need to go get the next great guy, and we need to go get the next great guy. That's really my argument with Judge. I would love the Yankees to keep Aaron Judge. I don't want the Yankees to keep Aaron Judge if they're going to then say for the next 10 years after they sign him to a big extension or a big contract, oh, well, yeah, we wanted to get next great player X, but we're paying Aaron Judge too much money, and we really can't do it. I think that's where the problem is.
I agree. And, Jack, I agree with you. That's too much money, but that's too much money for all the players that are signing right now. I mean, even we're going to talk about Trout next. That contract, he hasn't even played in the last 2 years hardly. I mean, the contracts are astronomical. I don't understand.
Mike Trout was worth the 10-year extension without question. He was still young enough, okay? And being a superstar, guys get hurt. You can't help that. The Aaron Judge thing is going to be very intriguing because I could just see the LA Dodgers, who are tending to throw away money now, kind of waiting in the bushes to see if there's any type of chance to negotiate with Judge if he becomes a free agent. I think they would absolutely overwhelm him. So the Yankees better do something with Judge sooner rather than later. But I wouldn't want them to sign Judge to a deal that takes him to age 40. I mean, I don't want to see Judge at who knows what he's going to be at 38, 30. Now, listen, In the case of an Aaron Judge, you could sign him to a deal that takes him through maybe age 37. And then if he's really good at that last year, then you sign him to a 3-year deal more, because at least you know what place he's at the time. But the Aaron Judge situation is like, wow, the Yankees just can't afford to lose him. But the Yankees shouldn't be reckless in that case either.
Well, it's like Robinson Cano, right? Robinson Cano was offered 1 more year. That's why he left. Good riddance, right? I mean, that's
3
ridiculous.
more years. The Yankees offered him a 7-year deal at $25 million a year, $175 million. Seattle offered him a 10-year deal at $240 million. Yeah, Yankees actually offered $1 million more per year on average.
Yeah, it was
the package was 40 and 25, $65 million more he could get. And let me tell you something. The temptation would be, if you're Robinson Cano, sign for the 7 years and then you get your money later. But you don't. But the back end of the contract, you can never make up that money later on. It's a really tough decision. The Yankees made the right call with Cano, not giving him the 10-year deal.
Listen, I agree with that. So say Judge becomes a free agent. Never mind the Dodgers, the Mets, the Padres, the Angels. I mean, all these teams would be bid on. Could you imagine Judge in a Mets uniform?
They got to blitz Aaron Judge. Don't let him become a free agent. Once he becomes a free agent, if he's performing the way he is now, the Yankees are absolutely going to lose him unless Aaron Judge loves the Yankees so much and is obsessed with not leaving them. I mean, someone's going to overwhelm the Yankees, the Angels, the Dodgers, and maybe another team.
Yeah, even the Mets. So, speaking of Trout, which I brought up, Jack gave me the topic, and I think he's taking. Are you taking Ohtani on this one, Jack?
No, I'm not.
You're taking Trout.
I love Ohtani though, but I'm not taking him.
So Trout, this is Jack's topic, and I'm glad he took Trout. He said if the Angels had to part with either Trout or Ohtani right now, who would they part with, or who should they part with? And of course, I'm going Ohtani. I mean, Ohtani's younger. He's a pitcher, which Trout sure ain't, and a good pitcher too. Maybe he's second on a staff. Great home run hitter, steals bases, can play right field, can DH, and he's good at everything. In fact, he's great almost at everything. I think he still leads the league in home runs, if I'm not mistaken. Slugging percentage is .628. He has 89 RBIs, 41 home runs. Is his record 12-4, I think? Is that what his record is? 3.47 ERA. I mean, how could you part with Ohtani? He's younger than Trout. Trout's been hurt. And I don't know, not that Trout ain't going to be a Hall of Famer when he retires, there's no doubt about that. But that's like picking Joe DiMaggio over Mickey Mantle. So the Yankees have Mickey Mantle and Joe DiMaggio. Joe DiMaggio's in his last 2 years. We'll even say his last 2 years. And Mickey Mantle comes aboard. And you have a choice. And Mickey Mantle has a great year. Joe DiMaggio plays good, but he's kind of fallen off. So do you let your heart get in the way? Or do you take the best prospective player? And Ohtani does a lot more than just play the outfield. So there will be no choice to me. It would easily be Ohtani.
First off, Mike Trout is in the prime of his career. He just happens to be hurt now. So the DiMaggio Mantle example, I mean, it doesn't apply at all.
Oh, come on.
Ohtani, listen. Ohtani right this moment is the best player in the game because he's doing it both ways. But okay, right this moment with Trout on the sideline, even Joe Madden, the manager of the Angels, was interviewed. They were asking him about Ohtani. He said, well, with Mike Trout out, I think Ohtani's the best player in the game right now. Ohtani is a very good pitcher. He's not an ace, okay? If he met the Yankees in a one-game playoff, we wouldn't be as fearful as we would if they were facing a peak Chris Sale, for example. Ohtani's having a great year. If we're living in the present for this season, Ohtani's the best player this year. He's phenomenal. I mean, the amount of home runs he's hitting, I mean, he's doing it all. But with that said, Mike Trout, if I told you this, how can you argue against it? Mike Trout, when healthy, okay, let's forget the injured part, is one of the 10 greatest players of all time. I could make that statement, and that's not a bold statement. He's as good as anyone who's played the game. I'm not talking about the Babe's accomplishments, okay? Let's not talk about accomplishments. Let's just talk about the greatest players of all time. There hasn't been a greater outfielder than Mike Trout. I mean, offensively, defensively, he comes back. He's a force. No one's ever been better than Mike Trout. He's that type of generational player that really never comes along. And Ohtani is doing great. I don't see Ohtani long-term being an ace-type pitcher. He's not an ace right now. There's a joy Ohtani brings to the game. We love watching him play. He's a two-way player. He's a novelty. He's been phenomenal this year. Phenomenal. Look, what does he have, 41 homers? And the season has a bit to go. I mean, there's a good chance the man's going to, top the 50 home run mark, at least a reasonable chance. But we're talking about Mike Trout here. Reminds me in closing when, let me just defer with Bill Belichick, believe it or not. He coached Lawrence Taylor when he was a defensive coordinator of the Giants. And now as head coach of the Patriots, they're asking him about Khalil Mack, who he has to play against. And they're saying, do you think he's as good as Lawrence Taylor? And Bill Belichick always gives short answers. And Bill Belichick looks at the report and says, we're talking about Lawrence Taylor here. And my answer is, we're talking about Mike Trout here. That's my answer.
Well, Jack, there was an outfielder that was just as good, if not better than Mike Trout, who got injured. Some people put him in the same category as Willie Mays as an outfielder. His name was Ken Griffey Jr. The man was awesome. I mean, if he stayed healthy, he was hitting home runs without steroids, playing outfield like Mickey Mantle. The guy was awesome, but he got hurt. And after he got hurt, he was never the same again. In fact, he retired. We don't know what's going to happen to Mike Trout. We don't know if he's going to be the same player when he comes back after the injury. We just don't know. I do know right now that Ohtani is the best player in baseball, period. He's doing things Babe Ruth didn't do. He's doing things that Lou Gehrig, that Willie Mays didn't do. He's a pitcher that hits for power, and he plays all the time, and he steals bases. He's not one of those pitchers that bunts and tries to get on first and sacrifice. That man is hitting base hits. He's stealing second. He's going out to right field when he's done pitching. And he's 12-4, Jack. I mean, there's no player like him right now. Mike Trout is going to be a Hall of Famer. Mike Trout right now is no Ohtani. He can't pitch. He's no Ohtani. If I had to make a decision right now, and that's what it is. If I was the GM of the Angels right now, and they said Ohtani or Trout, definitely Ohtani.
You're living in the moment, and my feeling is Doc will go in a few seconds, but I get the feeling Doc agrees with you. So I'm not going to cut in Doc, but I'm just going to say, if you do agree with Mac, I think you're living in the moment right now, forgetting how great Mike Trout is. He's an all-time great. Listen, Ken Griffey Jr. was great off the wall, but you put him and Mike Trout at their peaks, if you could only pick one, it's not an easy decision. It's a hard decision, but I would even go with Mike Trout. They're as great as Ken Griffey Jr. was. But let's turn it over to Doc.
Well, you guys, this is a great debate question, and it took me a little while to understand what the question was. So let me just try to make sure I understand it. The question is, I am the GM of the Angels, and the owner comes to me and he says, listen, we just can't make it work with our books anymore, and we've got to make a big splash. You're either going to trade Mike Trout or you're going to trade Shohei Ohtani. We can't keep them both. Is that the idea? Who do you keep?
That's good.
Wow. All right. So you're both right. I mean, living in the moment, the better player right now is Shohei Ohtani. He has, as a pitcher, a 3.7 WAR and a 4.2 WAR as a hitter. He's worth 7.9 WAR over this season. He's doing it on both sides. He's doing amazing things. He's great. He's amazing. Of course, he has been hurt, and especially last year, and so his durability is somewhat of a question. But he's younger. He is, I think, going forward, more of the face of baseball. If I'm an owner, I think I'd rather have Ohtani. He's a big player on more than one continent. One of the things about Mike Trout is he doesn't have that gravitas or whatever. He hasn't been a player that people have gone like crazy about because he's so great. And they say there's all sorts of reasons the Angels aren't good or whatever, but he's not a superstar that commands attention the way like Ohtani does, or the way Reggie Jackson would, or players like that. Now, what Jack is saying is that Mike Trout is one of the greatest center fielders of all time. So I'm pulling up some numbers here. There's a stat called WAR 7, which is you take this player's 7 best years and you calculate how much WAR they accumulated. And here they are, the best center fielders of all time by WAR 7. Number 1, Willie Mays. Number 2, Ty Cobb. Number 3, all time, Mike Trout. Better than Mantle, Speaker. But then the 6th guy, which makes which makes Mac's point so great, the number 6 guy is Ken Griffey Jr. So the question really becomes, is Mike Trout one of the greatest of all times? Jack is 100% right. The question is, at 30 years old going forward, is he going to be great throughout his 30s the way like a Hank Aaron was? Or has he reached the point in his career where he's still going to be very, very, very good, but are we going to be seeing a slow decline over the next 6, 7, 8, 10 years in Mike Trout? And if you have to make that decision as a GM, do you bank on the great player maintaining his greatness, or does he sort of fall off the cliff the way Ken Griffey Jr. did? Or do you go with the young guy who can pitch and hit and is the superstar of today, who also has more charisma? And I think if I'm the GM and I'm building the franchise, I have to go with Ohtani, crossing my fingers that he doesn't get hurt and that he can keep doing this pitching and outfield thing. Because if he can, I think he is the bigger face of baseball and the bigger face of the Angels over the next 5 years than Mike Trout would be.
And I think it's a great point. Listen, Mike Trout, again, guaranteed Hall of Famer. First ballot, there's no doubt about it. But even though Ohtani isn't a Hall of Famer, can you imagine if he stays healthy for the next 5 years? Everybody's going to want to be Ohtani. Everybody. That's all across any team, against any division, across continents. If he could go ahead.
I was talking to my son who writes for Start Spreading the News too, and he's doing a feature right now about guys who went straight to the major leagues and never played in the minor leagues before their major league debut. And he just wrote a piece on John Olerud. Now, John Olerud in the late 80s was a great college pitcher and a great hitter. And then the Blue Jays signed him, and I think they said, you're not going to pitch, you're just going to hit. But the thing about Ohtani, and this made a great conversation that we had, the thing that makes Ohtani different than everybody else is, let's say John Olerud came up now and he started his college career now and he graduates next year or in the next couple of years from college with the same kind of college career that he had 30 years ago. Would a team sign John Olerud just to be a first baseman, or would, knowing how Ohtani has done, the only guy who's ever done this, would they say, you know what, we're going to sign John Olerud to be the next Ohtani. He's going to pitch and hit. I mean, nobody else has done that in baseball history. The only other guy who's close is Babe Ruth, but once Babe Ruth started hitting, he stopped pitching. Ohtani's the only guy to do it regularly on both sides of the ball and do it well for this long. So it's fascinating. He's actually changing the game, which is just a thrill to watch. That's why I'd keep him. With no disrespect to Mike Trout, who's phenomenal. I would never get rid of Mike Trout, but if my owner really had to keep one or the other, what do you do?
Are we sure that Ohtani isn't a little bit of a one-year wonder the way Vida Blue was when he came up?
That's the worry.
I mean, with Oakland, And at that time, if you matched Vida Blue up with one of whoever else was in the major leagues who was a great established pitcher, you'd look at Vida Blue's upside. And listen, Ohtani's not all of a sudden going to lose it. But is he going to be this sensation going forward? But you do make a great point, Mike Trout, 30 years old. It is a concern. And I'm not thinking 10 years. I mean, when Mike Trout gets healthy, he's going to be the same Mike Trout, let's say, this next 5 years or so. You know, I have no doubts about that. But I understand you guys make an excellent point. And I have to admit, if I were the GM and you threw these arguments at me, it wouldn't be an easy call to make.
And there's one other thing to add to that, Jack. Say Ohtani's pitching falls off. He still can play right field and he's still can hit the ball. If Mike Trout's center fielding falls off, what happened? I mean, that's the great thing about somebody like this. And Doc, Babe Ruth did pitch for the Yankees of 5 games and he won all 5.
Yeah, he won all 5, but he pitched five games over 12 years or whatever, right?
Right. Okay, folks.
Here,
so
let me build off this real quickly because Jack just brings up a great question. I had to look it up. You're Charlie Finley. You're the owner of the 1971 Oakland A's, right? It's the same exact question, except Reggie's younger. You have the young superstar Reggie. He's 25. He's just hit 277 with 32 homers and 80 RBIs when 32 home runs and 80 RBIs meant a lot more. And let's say you couldn't have kept Reggie and Vida Blue. Vida Blue is 21 and he just went 24 and 8, 1.82. It's a similar question. If you only could have kept one of those guys, who would you have kept, Reggie or Vida Blue? You might have kept Vida Blue, and to Jack's point, that would have been the wrong guy.
You always keep the pitcher, don't you? I don't know. All right, folks, we'll be right back. A quick break here. We'll be right back on either side with a little bit more debate for you.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Infoline. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
He was a giant, and he was a cowboy. Now these two former rivals have joined forces to bring you the most insightful, perceptive, and controversial sports talk podcast in America. Former Dallas Cowboys defensive end Jim Jeffcoat locks horns with former New York Giants wide receiver Byron Williams. These guys know how to talk shop. Why? Because they played the game. Talking Shop with J&B, Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, only on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready. I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, guys, any...
Good Saturday morning. Welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. I'm your host, Mac, your co-host, Jack, and guest co-host, Dr. Paul Semendinger. Here on the Debate Show, we're on live Thursday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. And, folks, I showed you a little clip of a new show coming up called Talking Shop with J and B. That's Jim Jeffcoat. Byron Williams will be starting on the YouTube channel 1 September at 8 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss it. It's going to be a great show. Two former great football players going over football, having big guests. And August 30th, we also have another YouTube show for you. Yeah, we're working hard at Northeast Streaming Sports to bring you new YouTube show. And that includes the doctor himself, Dr. Paul Semendinger, Dr. E.J. Fagan. And they start spreading the news to life on video as they have their show all about the Yankees. Start spreading the news. We'll also, in the next couple of weeks, have a nice promo and intro for them, too. We're working on that as we speak. I just sent over the information. So, 30 August, folks, 9 p.m. Eastern, Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel. You got to check it out, because if you want to know about the Yankees, Doc Paul here, or Doc Sem, as his students call him, and Dr. Fagan will be giving you the skinny on the Yankees. So I can't wait to see that and be part of that, Doc. Congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you. It's going to be great. We're looking forward to it. E.J. Fagan has hosted the Bronx Beat podcast for more than a decade, I believe. I'm a frequent guest there. And now we have the chance through Northeast Streaming Sports to bring face to the program, to expand it a great bit, and take some of the good stuff he was doing and is doing with the Bronx Beat podcast, some of the great stuff we're doing with the Start Spreading the News Yankee site, and bring it all together and present hopefully a great Yankees program every Monday at 9 p.m.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about it. We did record part of it and put it out there and got great reception for that, Doc. So,
oh, nice, thank you.
A lot of views and a lot of happy Yankee fans out there. So,
and
I know
Doc is lucked out with the Yankees playing the way they are now. What a perfect lead into the show. It couldn't be better.
Well, I got to be honest. I called Brian Cashman and I said, do me a favor. Let's have a terrible first half, get really hot, so that when we kick off this Yankee show, that the Yankees are doing great and it'll make for a great postseason run. So, yeah, the Yankees, they worked with me hand in hand on this.
Yes, they did. And even though I've heard rumors about Boone not really being a big fan of yours, Doc, just letting you know.
Yeah, I'm sure.
He did cooperate, too. So I'm glad to see that all the cylinders are working over there at Yankeedom. And
listen, I've been hard on Aaron Boone. You know, I've been taken to task for that. And some people have said, like, well, the Yankees are now winning. And so that proves you were wrong. And we could go on and on for hours about this, and I won't. But I've argued that doesn't prove I was wrong, because the Yankees made so many changes and Boone has changed his approach. I have nothing against Aaron Boone as a person. I even have nothing against Aaron Boone as a manager. If the Yankees are winning,
right.
Heck, if he wins, the next win he has ties him with Buck Showalter for 9th most in Yankees history. You know what? I hope Aaron Boone wins the most games in Yankees history. I hope the Yankees keep winning. I hope he wins 1,000 World Series. That'd be great. I'd become the biggest Aaron Boone fan in the world. But if the Yankees keep losing and they were playing like they did in the first half of the year and blowing playoff games because of mismanagement, then I'm not going to be a big Aaron Boone fan.
And he hit
Listen,
one of
Aaron
the
Boone,
most.
keep winning. I'll be your biggest fan.
And he hit one of the most famous homers in Yankee history, too, Aaron.
That's correct.
Boone.
And got the A-Rod, because then he got hurt after that.
That's true, too. So, I mean, Aaron Boone, if not only by luck, has been part of the history of Yankees. It's true. It's very true. So, Jack, the next debate topic, and Doc, I know this will go kind of blindside you because it's about football, and you know a little bit about football.
A little bit.
But John Riggins is not involved in this topic. If you say John Riggins, I don't know what to say to you. So, anyway, the topic for today, now, there's two young quarterbacks, one a little bit older than the other, in the NFC East. One is supposedly on a hot seat this year. His name is Daniel Jones for the Giants. They went out and got him some receivers. Saquon Barkley's going to be playing. The offensive line has been together another year. And, last year he had a rough year, to say the least. And, we can attribute it to a bad offensive line in the beginning. We can attribute it to Saquon Barkley being hurt. We can attribute it to a lot of things. But the facts are the facts. He had a bad year. And the Giants picked him in the first round. The Eagles, on the other hand, have another quarterback that they picked in the first round. And Wentz ended up, I guess, being upset about it. I think Wentz is just upset as a person in general, just my outlook on Carson Wentz. But Carson Wentz left, and Hurts takes over. Hurts is only quarterbacked, I think, 4 or 5 games. And his stats don't ring up as to one of the better quarterbacks. Of course, he's a rookie, and he will still be a rookie until he plays a full season. But I think Jack thinks that Hurts will be better than Jones. And go ahead, Jack, tell us why.
Okay, Jalen Hurts actually was drafted in the second round by the Eagles. And the thing with Daniel Jones, okay, he has a better team. The Giants are a better team than the Eagles. So they're expected to have a better record, and the team is going to perform better. But individually, Jalen Hurts is going to show himself to be the better player. He's limited, the same way Jones is to a certain extent. But the Giants are a better team. Jones is in his 3rd year. Jalen Hurts is in his 2nd year. And Jalen Hurts didn't play much the first year. So I think the upside for Jalen Hurts is much, much better. And I think Daniel Jones is under the same pressure that Sam Darnold was. You better perform well. And the Giant fans are going to come out of the woodwork if Daniel Jones isn't performing. They're going to say, well, why did they trade the pick away? Why didn't the Giants draft Justin Fields? Why didn't they draft, Mac Jones? We're going to hear all that talk as the year goes along. I mean, I think the Giants are going to perform something like about a 9-8 record this year. I think Daniel Jones will be like blah, just so, nothing to get excited about. There'll be games that the Giants could have won, and they couldn't take them to another level. So I think the Giants are going to have to take a hard look at this. And I think at the end of the year, they're going to come to the conclusion that Daniel Jones really isn't a franchise quarterback. Will they stick with him for a year beyond this? Who knows? But they're going to come to that conclusion. He's not a franchise quarterback. I don't think the Eagles are going to come to that conclusion. You're going to see enough good things from Jalen Hurts on a lousy team to feel we got to fill in other spots. Quarterback's not one of them. So I think the Giants will have a better team than the Eagles this year, but I think Jalen Hurts is going to have a better year than Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I mean, when Daniel Jones came in his rookie year, he broke a lot of rookie records, Jack. Touchdowns, yardage, and Saquon Barkley was healthy. And the Giants' offensive line, even though it wasn't the greatest, was okay. And the Giants have been drafting offensive linemen, trying to build that offensive lineup. And at the end of last year, they had somewhat of a running game because they couldn't pass. They had nobody. Sherman was hurt. Evan Ingram was dropping balls that he should have caught that would have gave him a couple more wins. Heck, if he caught 2 balls, they would have went to the playoffs last year. That's how bad the drops were. Daniel Jones is a smart kid. And to be a quarterback, you got to be smart. I don't know what Jalen Hurts' score was. I know that Jones did very well at Duke as far as his education went. Eli Manning's quarterback coach said that he was one of the better quarterbacks he's ever seen. He's a great pocket quarterback passer, but he also has speed. He also can run a 4.5. And we saw him run quite well last year. So we know he's a pocket quarterback that can run with the ball. The only problem he has holding on to the ball. He's lost a couple of games because of sack fumbles. So he's got to be better at that. There's no question about that. And I think he is kind of on the hot seat this year. The question is Jalen Hurts. We don't know enough about him yet. We don't know about his accuracy yet. Even in training camp, he's been having problems. He's been hurt during training camp. In fact, he's hurt right now. We don't know what he can do. To say Jalen Hurts is going to be better is kind of looking at one of those lucky 8 balls, man. I mean, I don't know how you could say that. There's not even enough tape on Jalen Hurts to say that he'll be better. The Eagles team is definitely going to is in worse shape than the Giants this year. They're rebuilding. And he's going to be on a team that may be in last place this year. I don't know, Jack. I don't know how you're going to say he's going to have the better career. Archie Manning was a great quarterback on a terrible team. He was one of the Heisman Trophy finalists. And he was
better
a great
year, Mac. We were talking better career necessarily. I didn't look that far. Better year next
even
year.
a better year. If you want to compare, Archie Manning's years to Joe Theismann's years. I think Archie Manning overall was a better college quarterback than Joe Theismann was. Could run with the ball, could pass the ball, had an arm and a half. But he played on a terrible team. If Archie Manning was on the Washington Redskins, who knows how good he would have been. A lot of this has to do, Jack, with what team you're on. Right? I mean, if Fran Tarkenton didn't waste all those years with the Giants, and he was with the Vikings, maybe they would have won a couple Super Bowls back then. It has a lot to do with the team. I just don't know enough about Jalen Hurts to say that he's going to have a better year than Daniel Jones. And if we're talking about winning, which is all that really matters, I think he'll have a worse year than Daniel Jones. Accuracy, I don't see accuracy yet. I know he's a dynamic player. He'll make plays that maybe Jones can't. But so could Winston. And so could a lot of quarterbacks, Jack. So I don't know that I don't think he's going to have a better. In fact, I'm almost positive Daniel Jones will have a better year. Will Hurts be better in the long run? Maybe. I can't tell yet. But we at least got to see a full season out of the guy before we can say he's going to have a better year. This year's a rebuilding year for the Eagles, Jack. I don't see that happening. What do you think, Doc?
All right, you just spoiled all my fun. I'm sitting here saying I don't have a response to any of this. You said what I couldn't say, so my answer, and I can't believe. I mean, I understand because they were contemporaries, but my answer was going to be the best young quarterback in the NFC East is Joe Theismann because he can hand off the ball to John Riggins. I was going to throw that, and then you throw Joe Theismann out there.
Yeah.
I had this great original thought, and you used my only idea. No, I don't have an opinion on this one.
Yeah, I think football is so team dependent. You can have a great pitcher like a DeGrom, and you really don't need anybody else. I mean, if he's on, all you got to do is score one run. At least end in a tie if he pitches for that amount of innings. But I don't care if you have the greatest quarterback in the history of football. If he's not on a good team, he's not going to win the Super Bowl. We know that with Dan Marino, John Elway, till he got a team around him. You've got to have a great team in front of you, or a very good team in front of you, to win Super Bowls and to have great years. And I mean, I just don't see it happening, Jack. I really don't. So I don't know what your response is to that, but I don't see Hurts having a good year at all, honestly. So the last one we'll have time to debate, and this is a pretty good topic. The Buffalo Bills. There's talk about a new stadium. Buffalo might lose the Bills if they don't build a new stadium. They're talking about that too. And I go first, and let me just say a couple things here. I'm tired of owners complaining about new stadiums. I am so tired of that. And who should pay for it? I'll tell you the truth, Jack. If I had my choice right now to go to Fenway Park or Yankee Stadium, I'd go to Fenway Park. Why? Because of the history. If it was the old Yankee Stadium, the old Yankee Stadium. I would love to go to Wrigley Field. I would love to go to Lambeau Stadium. I would love to go to Soldier Field. I don't care about all this new blah, blah, Dallas Cowboys. I would go to Lambeau Field over going to the Dallas Cowboys Stadium. I would go to Soldier Field over than going to the Vegas new stadium. To me, history is something you don't change. You can renovate it if you want. You can make it a little bit better. But to build a new stadium, or they're going to move, and I know Buffalo fans are the best fans in the league. They do more for the Buffalo Bills and their charities than any fans in the league, period. To threaten them or to say that to them, I think is a slap in the face. And if Buffalo Bills do leave, I guarantee you there will be another team in there right away. Because that is a stadium that I think any football player, as Jim Jeffcoat has said, playing in front of those fans is one of the greatest feelings in the world. So to do something like that to Buffalo, I don't know. I don't know, Jack. I just don't like it at all.
I'm going to make it quick, basically. Okay. Buffalo's a unique community. It's not like any other community. New York City could afford to lose a team. Chicago, LA, not the Buffalo Bills. They could afford to lose the Buffalo Sabres, the hockey team, not the Buffalo Bills. That's the most unique situation in sports. Look, their fans cheered wildly for Scott Norwood missing the field goal in the Super Bowl. That just shows how great their fans are. It's a tight-knit community. It's a small town. It's a bit of a depressed city, Buffalo, not meaning to put it down. They desperately need the Bills to stay there. And the city of Buffalo has to work with them, and they just can't lose. Losing the Buffalo Bills would be the equivalent of Brooklyn losing the Dodgers.
It's a good point. It's a good point, Jack. I don't know. I just think that I'm just tired of that stuff. I really am. I honest to God, if the Yankees and the Red Sox were playing in Fenway Park or the new Yankee Stadium, I'd go watch them play in Fenway Park.
I agree with, before that goes, I agree with all you're saying, Mac, except I give Buffalo a waiver. It's a unique situation, small city. That's the heart and soul of that city, really the Buffalo Bills.
You could compare that to the Green Bay Packers, Jack. Go ahead, Doc.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're both saying. Buffalo needs to keep the Bills, but I'm tired of owners holding that over a city. Cities, there's so many things that cities have to pay money for, and to be investing billions of dollars into these stadiums, et cetera. I agree. Yankee Stadium, it's a great place. I love it. I love the old stadium more. I was excited when they refinished it and they put the new one up and all that kind of stuff. But there was something that was special about the old Yankee Stadium, and just shutting things down and putting up brand new things. They become, I don't know, more sterile, more cold. The new Yankee Stadium doesn't have the feel like the old Yankee Stadium does. And the new ballparks, except for a rare one like Camden Yards, which isn't even that new anymore, don't really have the feel of the great old parks. So I'm tired of teams holding cities hostage. I'm tired of having these new stadiums that are supposedly great. Even the old Meadowlands, MetLife Stadium, it doesn't overwhelm me. And how much money did they put into that thing, right? For the Giants and the Jets.
Yeah, I look at Green Bay as a prime example, as Jack talking about small markets. They actually own that team. I mean, they own shares in that team. That is all. I can't imagine them trying to. They can't. Green Bay did it the right way. They said it's our team. They're staying here, and we're going to do what we want. That they did it. Maybe Buffalo should do something like that. Maybe they should sell shares. I mean, if you want to reward the fans, we're going to do this. If we want to rebuild this, we want to take care of this. Hey, what do you guys think? I mean, maybe that's the answer, Jack. Instead of saying, well, if you don't. I mean, the cities are depressed right now with COVID and people out of work and there's so much going on right now. I mean, airlines shutting down why would you do that to your own fan base? It's a sin, man. It's a sin, Jack.
Just quickly, Buffalo and Green Bay are unique. It's a different situation. Those are small towns, and they mean so much more than just as a sports team.
I agree. It's like a family almost out there. So
and maybe the NFL has an obligation in this too. Like you just can't allow the Buffalo Bills to leave, and the NFL has to take some ownership to help make sure that they stay.
They did it with the Oakland Raiders for a while. I'll tell you that. They fought him in court, and Al Davis won that. But maybe it's time the NFL does step in, and maybe they do offer. If anybody in the Buffalo Bills organization is listening to this, offer them shares. Offer them to be part owners. I mean, and if you need to do something, go to them. Ask them for the money. I mean, if they can run, what do they raise, Jack? $100,000 for some charity, something ridiculous? Can't they raise that money to help the stadium? I mean, come on, man. It's crazy. Folks, thanks for sticking with us today all the way through Saturday's debate show. Tomorrow we'll be back with our This Week in Sports. With the following week, it will be the big NFL show. And we start covering the NFL big time. Thanks for joining us. Join us tomorrow, 8 to 10 a.m. We have Robert Butler and Jim Jeffcoat on our show. Jim is as a guest host. Thanks, Doc, for coming in. Folks, remember August 30th, YouTube special. Start spreading the news. 1 September, J&B Talking Shop. Have a great day, folks. today. We're having work done on the lines out here. They're redoing